Is there a conflict between science and the Christian faith? Many people inside and outside the church would answer yes to that question, but is that really the case? I'm joined today by Dr. Ken Keathley, a Christian scholar, a professor of theology at Southeastern Baptist Theological Seminary in Wake Forest, to help answer that question. Ken, what would you say to somebody that said there's conflict between science and Christianity?
Oh man, if there's ever been a myth that has persisted despite the fact that it is not historically accurate, it has to be the myth of the warfare metaphor, or the conflict myth between faith and science. John William Draper and Andrew Dixon White were two authors who wrote over 100 years ago. Both argued very strongly that there is this conflict between faith and science, and that it is irreconcilable, and it's just simply natural to the process of religion and the process of science that they always be in conflict. But historically, that's simply not the truth, and in fact, one cannot find a mainstream historian of science that would agree with either Draper or White, and both realized that these were polemicists. There is a general recognition that they were polemicists who really had an agenda. The fact of the matter is that even in the Galileo conflict between the Roman Catholic Church and Galileo, let's remember Copernicus himself was a Catholic priest. Galileo was a faithful member of the Catholic Church. And in fact, when you look at the argument that Galileo made, evangelical Christians could agree wholeheartedly with the argument that he made. He said, one thing we can be sure of is that both the Bible and nature are real and tell us truth from God. And so that whenever the two appear to be in conflict, you need to go back and make sure, first off, am I looking at the evidence, scientific evidence, correctly? And if you say, okay, yes, the scientific evidence is pretty solid, well, then I need to go back and look at my interpretation of Scripture and see if I'm interpreting Scripture properly, because properly interpreted, the Bible and nature are not in conflict because both have the same author, and that is God. So Galileo was a very good theologian. When we look at the scientific revolution itself, we find that it happened in northern Christian Protestant Europe. That's for a reason. There were certain features that the Christian worldview provided that were essential for the scientific enterprise. Historians of science have noted that other cultures, whether it was the Aztec culture here in the Americas, or the Chinese culture in Asia, or other cultures throughout the world, they had technology, but they didn't have science. They didn't have science as a well-ordered discipline. And so when one looks at how science as a field, as a discipline developed, we find that Christians were at the forefront of it, that they were able to do the work that they were doing because of their Christian worldview. And so most historians will acknowledge that the Christian worldview played at least a significant role, with some going so far as to say that Christianity was the essential feature, and I'll let historians figure that one out. But in terms, historically, has there been a conflict between faith and science? No, the other way around. Most would say that the Reformation, Renaissance worldview of the 16th, 17th, and 18th century Europe provided the matrix which birthed the scientific revolution. And even today, whenever one does surveys or looks at surveys, we find that there are a significant number of believers in every area of the sciences. Yeah. And in some areas, it is as much as the general population. In other words, the same percentage that one finds in the general population, one finds pretty close to that in terms of scientists holding to some type of theism or explicitly Christian. So it is unfortunate that the myth persists. I would say that those who promote the myth even today, shame on them because they know better. But also, I suspect that there may be an agenda there. They want there to be a conflict, and therefore that's what they promote.